But getting back to this theme I was talking about earlier about just the sense of community I had of going to this pub, and I mean, even apply that to just Twitter. Like, I reference Twitter so much throughout this podcast because I get a lot out of being part of that Arsenal community and getting really tapped in with followers and people. Like, I follow people that I know personally that are Arsenal fans from the Seattle area. I follow this dude from Ireland and he's like drunk taking videos and just talking about how much he appreciates how positive the Arsenal community has been this season. And I just think he's like a funny guy. Like, he posts really funny memes and stuff. I enjoy following him. I follow people from India that are Arsenal fans. Like, it's kind of nuts when you think of like the grand scope of everything and the influence of the game. And even more so on that, I think about, you know, talking about India. I remember, and I've probably said this on the podcast before, but I remember playing on the beaches in India, you know, playing with like kids that they don't have much at all. I remember playing with, you know, just a typical Indian guy. I saw this one guy, he had a Manchester United tattoo on his body. He'll probably never have the opportunity in his life to play for Manchester United, but it's that that like hope, you know, that dream, everything. The tribalism of football is a beautiful thing, I think.
Like a community, like an international community. Like, you can, if you were a United fan at that moment, you would have met that dude and probably would have never seen him again in your life, but you guys would have been able to connect over a club.
Yeah, and like the fact I can go into this pub and like I don't know anything about these guys, and by the end of it we're shaking hands. I'm like, hey, it was really nice to meet you. Yeah. Like, and the reason I'm bringing all this sappy shit up is because recently Manchester United have been not only approached, Qatar has put a bid in for Manchester United
paperwork,
and it's a really scary thing for me and how I view football, especially European football. I'm very scared that one of the things I love most in this world is going to be ruined and because of a product of money.
Turned into a commodity. I mean, it has been commodified, but...
Right, and it's... Maybe there's some hypocrisy to it because, like, every owner in football is super rich and a billionaire and all that. I think
every owner in the Premier League is a billionaire.
Every owner in the Premier League is a billionaire. And maybe I'm making a very specific case about it because it's oil money. Manchester United's revenue piled up with the fact they would have oil money would make them essentially unstoppable, would make them probably the biggest team in the world, and nobody would be able to compete with them. Qatar is also the people that, these are the same people that own PSG, right? They're the same people that might just, who have openly said they're Manchester United fans. Yeah, maybe they bring Mbappe over. Maybe they start doing, you know, so you could get crazy, you know.
Get Messi to Manchester United.
You know, and at that point, you're just destroying the league because you destroy any sense of competitiveness, any sense of
just a couple episodes ago, we were talking about how United was in the doldrums for 10 years and they were still a financial juggernaut. They were still one of the highest value clubs in the world. Anywhere you go on the internet, you talk about Manchester United. Like, I thought the Arsenal effect was kind of big this season just because they're winning a whole bunch. You say anything Arsenal, people are going to flock to it. But it's like Manchester United still has that effect no matter what.
They always will.
They have more fans than it. Like, there's no question. Don't ask. Don't whatever. Like, it comes with it. Like, there's a reason everyone considered Manchester United fans so annoying. It's because there's so many of them. And so their voice gets amplified. They are one of the few where you can go in any corner on earth and you will run into a fan. Going on your whole social aspect of things and like how you went to that pub and like you built a quick sense of community even in one game.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess my biggest fear is that gets taken away because you're a fan of like what you can appreciate as a kid, especially if you don't have the literal hometown connection. You know, I had a small connection to London and that I had cousins and an aunt and a uncle that all lived there. But other than that, it was, I wanted to root for like a winner, like a good team, but I didn't want to root for a team that won it every single year. And so I always thought of Arsenal as like that puncher's chance favorite to win the Prem. And Fabregas really intrigued me when he was at the peak of his young powers before the Barca days. But if you get to a point where it's all Moneyball, all you're gonna have are your City, your United, PSG.
PSG is your City, your
and
United,
that's it. And then those
Newcastle's.
will become. And you look at what's happening right now in the Prem, and it's beautiful. Like you have Manchester United, and yeah, it's a down year for Liverpool, but Liverpool is still a really good team.
And Liverpool, Arsenal, and Chelsea, and Spurs.
Chelsea too. Like we have an opportunity here with this league to have a really incredible product. Yeah,
I love Brentford. The fact Fulham is as high as they are, I want Crystal Palace to do well. Like, there's so many different possibilities within the Premier League. I think what you're talking about definitely struck a chord with me. Just think about how we regard these teams and these clubs. We don't call it a team. We don't call it a franchise. We call them clubs. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, what is a club? Is a group or an organization formed by members of a society. Like, it's people. These clubs that have been around for hundreds of years, they've managed to become part of the fabric of their local society. That's why they've had crazy history for so long. It don't have to be a Real Madrid or a West Ham or, you know, a club that was crazy good in the 30s. It could be a club that's never made the fucking third division, but they've been around for hundreds of years. That is what a club is. And it's wild because even more than an NFL team and an NBA team, I think football clubs, they tend to engender a type of passion and a type of support in which you form a community, an international community. Arsenal fans are everywhere. I've been said this. Manchester United fans are everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Liverpool fans tend to stick real close together. Bro, I've never seen a Roma fan in my life, in real life, but there's a gigantic Roma fan community on the internet. You know what I'm saying? These guys are spread out all over the world. This is what clubs do. Some of these clubs, most of these clubs reach success off of doing things well, and you know, you attract people off of being winners, but usually this stuff happens organically. When you start bringing in billionaires and state-owned organizations and things like that who are just going to pump money in, then it becomes a closed league in and of itself. Anyways, it becomes something like the NFL, or it becomes something like the NBA. But it's because it's Europe and because it's promotion relegation, it becomes so much more predatory. Because all these guys are going to be doing is picking off the best players off of other teams, offering them crazy contracts.
Yeah, just so people can understand, when we talk about the discrepancy in the amount of money here we're talking about is like, I think what regular Prem owners are anywhere from like a couple billion to maybe like 9 to 10 billion max
worth, like net worth.
Yeah, and these guys are like 336 billion. Like it's a whole different ballpark. It's another league. Yeah, it essentially is another league. And yeah, I really would like to think that the Prem would put their product first over their greed for money.
Yeah, I think we know how that's going to go. We've seen, look, Chelsea, City, and now Newcastle, and now the biggest team in the history of the world, you know, not even just the Prem, the one team that we can probably assume that most officials in the league, not even refs, but I'm talking like board members and things like that, like, we know they have fans like everywhere, and then you're going to put Gulf State money behind that too. What is there? Who's going to be there to stop them aside from another billionaire? So it's going to be Qatar, Dubai, and Saudi Arabia.
I was talking to a friend too, and he was debating with me like the morality of billionaires in general, and you know, like, what difference does it make if, you know, ethically, if you have a Saudi owner versus a different billionaire owner? Like, all billionaires come from, you know, we don't have to get into all that, but you usually have to take advantage of somebody or some group of people at some point
in order to become
that wealthy,
right?
But my only thing is, like, I'm not talking about like the advantages and like the money aspects at that level. I'm talking about preserving the sport. Yeah. And that idea that we started the episode with, in that I can walk into an Arsenal pub and I can meet these people and have nothing in common with them besides the fact we both love to watch the Gunners play. And we can walk out of there having an incredible experience watching a game that we thought we were going to lose.
Yeah. I think using Arsenal as an example, right? Like, even the historical Arsenal, like, I feel like most Arsenal fans, when they became fans of Arsenal, especially back in like the early 2000s, mid 2000s, 2010s, it's off the style of play, you know? Right. And it's like, it meant something, because you can have a pretty style of play and it don't mean shit, right? But Arsenal were winning things, winning trophies, always competing with the big boys, and they always had a beautiful style of play. Where I'm going with that is, how is it even going to be possible to create a fan base in that same type of way if it's not even going to mean anything? You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't matter how pretty the football can be. And that's just a small example of what I mean. But it's not going to be able to take a root. It's not going to be able to have any effect on anything.
I probably talk about it too much, but like, I am really proud of the fact that I support a club that okay, yeah, they're owned by a billionaire, but they're known as like, they've always been known as like classy Arsenal, and they go about doing things the right way, and they build through their academy, and they don't. Nicolas Pepe is our craziest transfer fee, and yeah, he was a flop, but that was 72 mil, and 72 mil seems like a going rate for like a above average player at this point.
A pretty good player.
What we have today is a product of like building through the local community, building through the academy system, good coaching, like proper scouting, teaching people how to play the game, and how to play players, it the Arsenal way.
Right.
Like that's to me that's the idea of how a club should be formed, not just buy Mbappe, buy Vinicius Jr., buy everybody you possibly can. And I like to think that me being a fan of those parts of Arsenal and appreciating those aspects of the club are the things that bring us Arsenal fans close together, which I think is what you were trying to say, but I kind of just wanted to apply it a little more.
Yeah, you're saying exactly what I mean. You know what I'm saying? It's like those values that even the club holds within itself. It attracts people.
Because I got to see Fabregas ball out from like 16 years old onward. I was like, I love this. I get to see all these kids come up through the academy and they play at a Champions League level every year. They all, they play hard. They play beautiful soccer, and I'm bonded through that. I'm not bonded through the idea of like, oh, okay, like,
let's go buy this guy.
I'm not a Manchester United fan that was like, okay, we won 20 league titles or whatever, and we bought the best player from the league every single season and continued success. Like, that's cool, I guess, if that's what you want. But I get a lot more out of the smaller details of my football club, I feel like. And similarly how you should feel as a Liverpool fan, right? And how every other team, and Manchester United fans too. I'm not just trying to like hate on Manchester United. Manchester United has built a lot through their academy, prestigious history.
Massive history.
Whether it's controversial or not, incredible trophy cabinet. And every club has those aspects. But the moment you put in this ridiculous amount of money, none of that matters.
None of it really seems to matter. PSG were a club once. They had history and they had personality. PSG were never the biggest club in France. They were always a plucky underdog. That's what's crazy. They're the only one in that gigantic multi-million population area of like Paris, central France, and things like that. They're the only major league club, if you want to call it that. But they were always smaller. They were always smaller than Marseille. They were always smaller than Lyon. They were considered plucky, and they would have amazing players every once in a while. They'd have JJ Okocha and Ronaldinho on the same team, but they'd have guys every once in a while. But now it's just it's a fashion brand.
It feels very hollow.
Hey, we have Messi and Mbappe, the two best players at the World Cup, and Neymar.
You know what's crazy? Guendouzi posted a picture, and Guendouzi is what, 21, 22 max. Mm-hmm. He's a young kid. He posted a picture of himself. Must have been like 10, 8, holding up a Marseille jersey, and he said, "I told you, I've always been here," or something along those lines.
Yep,
he's not holding up a PSG jersey.
That's a real fit.
He was a kid like a decade ago, man. It wasn't that long ago.
You can't buy it, bro. You can't buy it. Marseille to this day is the biggest club in France. Anybody who tells you PSG is the biggest club in France is just looking at money. Literally, they're just looking at money. They might be looking at trophies. Marseille is still the biggest. That fan base is real. That connection is real. That's one of those clubs where once someone becomes a fan of that club, there's no one else. There's nothing else. Like, it doesn't matter if they win or lose. I'm not saying people glory hunt, things like that, but it sucks. It's like once again, football imitates life, right? Like, we're watching things that should be typical. Things that should belong to the community. It gets bought and it gets taken over, and it no longer becomes a will of the club. It no longer becomes the will of people. As much as we can say fans don't have power in a club, they do have a lot of power in a club, financial power, protesting, things like that. But I think the more and more money you pump into it, the less and less influence the fans have, the people who actually run the club, the people who want to see things happen in the club. They have no control over it at this point. They're just there to follow along the whims of one guy. And it kind of sucks to see. I guess I get that. Yes, I'm being mad hypocritical right now but even before this potential Qatari bid for United, every single owner of the Premier League is a billionaire. We've already had mega corporations and multinational, whatever, state-owned organizations.
I would like to think that we can separate the fact that it's a problem regardless, billionaire ownership.
And the fact that
it is getting taken to a whole different level. To me, these are two separate things. And arguing about taking it to another level doesn't mean that the fact that there's so many billionaire owners isn't any less of a problem.
We can still talk about it. I see what you're saying, and I agree. I think the fact of the matter is we still need to be able to talk about this and understand that, like, even though it's already happened, there's a way to... Just because you have cancer doesn't mean you don't try and fight the shit. Ooh, what's a little more cancer? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, you're not just going to instantly just go terminal. I
think what sucks is I'm relieved as a Liverpool fan, but...
Well, that was the other bit of news is... FSG came out today.
Like you said, FSG reported that they're not doing a full sale, which as soon as they came out with it, we knew it wasn't a full sale. As soon as they said, oh, they're also open to a partial sale, we knew that's what they're looking for. They're looking for an outside investor. But it still doesn't make sense to me that there are fans of Liverpool who are saying, oh, fuck, we missed out. Bro, do you understand that? Like, you want to talk about community, you want to talk about values. Look at the club that you claim to represent. Liverpool is known for giving to others in terms of they tend to have left-leaning like policy. They tend to be more community driven. They have a whole bunch of community driven incentives. It's based off of the area they're from. Liverpool has been a consistently marginalized area of the country since around Margaret Thatcher or even before. They've like purposefully been drained of resources and austerity and things like that. It's a very poor area, and so the club basically has to entrench itself within that community. It became a pillar of that community, and one of the things that the people had to do in that area in order to survive was give to other people, was to take some of what they had and put it in a food bank or put it somewhere so that someone else could have enough to eat or someone else could turn on the heat for the wintertime. Everton and Liverpool would consistently do food drives even to this day, and it's actually getting more and more frequent because, you know, Brexit fucked the British economy. Yeah. That's a whole nother subject. Yeah. So you're talking about that. You're talking about a club that has espoused those values since
its creation. Yeah.
From time. And you're sad because a multi-billion-dollar Gulf state sports washing regime didn't want to buy Liverpool. Like, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But what sucks is that those people, at the end of the day, they do have a point. Because at this point, we will get left behind in the rat race. Because it seems as though the Qataris are going to buy somebody. And I feel like the more states you have owning teams, especially in the Premier League, it's going to be a snowball effect. You're just going to get more and more and more.
Yeah, and the Prem is just going to allow for more and more money to be injected into the league.
I think those guys
benefits them.
I think those guys would love another Robin Abramovich. I think they would love another Manchester City. Honestly,
if they could sell all the big teams to Saudi level owners, I'm sure they would.
Pumping billions and billions.
The Prem wants nothing more than to see Mbappe, Messi, Neymar all playing in the Prem.
And you know what's wild? What's fucking crazy is that like it's maybe at a different time the government might have had something to say, right? And apparently the UK is going to drop something called a white paper, which is like basically like government reform. Okay, we've noticed this. You guys can't handle yourself on this and things like that. It all ties into the whole Manchester City RICO case. But what is actually going to happen is because of Brexit, Britain's economy has slowed down and it's basically crashed at this point. This past winter, there was this huge thing about having enough gas for heat. People are freezing in their homes. People don't have any money. People can barely afford rent. Rent is ridiculous everywhere in Britain and things like that. So like it's like 50 million kids or 100 million kids go hungry every night type stuff. Like, it's bad in Britain right now. Only reason I don't really know is because the British are so good at, that's like a naturally British thing. Like, you're just not going to see how bad it is for us. The issue is that due to Brexit, British exports are getting caught up in red tape going to Europe, and British imports are stupid expensive now just due to tariff, taxes, all that stuff. So they fucked themselves. Now their economy is shrinking. One of the only things that they have that is growing is the Premier League. It already generates billions of dollars worth of revenue, gate tickets, TV, almost every single category, especially the TV, but almost every single category generates billions by itself. If they can get more state owned, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be state ownership, but more people with that type of money, where it's in the multiple billions, hundreds of billions.
More people to put more stupid amounts of money into their league.
It's going to go to the league, and then maybe, who knows, but somehow, some way, it might end up helping pump up the economy. Now, you can say that there's a whole bunch of negatives to that. One, you're subjecting Britain's economy to the whims of a few Gulf states. You're undiversifying your economy, and you're basing it on sport, which is something you almost never want to do. There's a lot of negatives to that, but it's kind of going to be like a natural thing. There's nothing else that they can really focus on that makes that amount of guap. That's in my opinion, you know. If there's any economics majors out there who want to be like, oh, he's talking out of his fucking ass, let us know. You know, just reply in the comments. Go ahead, rate us a 1 star, 2 stars.
No, don't say that. Don't say that. Don't give any ideas.
No, rate us 5 stars. Stop playing.
No, I mean, I think that was our message though for today, and I want to end it with just like, I hope that clubs and the league can preserve the values that these clubs were brought up on, preserve these same communities that we were talking about, and keep carrying on these traditions, because that's what makes football special, and that's what makes it touch, the hearts of kids from India to the US and everywhere in between.